Hello everyone, my name is Afzal Akbar and I'm here with Group 8. We'll explain about verbal communication, similarities, difference, non-verbal communication and cultures, body behavior, eye contact and gaze, touch, smell, and paralanguage. But before all of that, we will introduce ourselves. My name Afzal Akbar, and my friend Afifahillah Hurul Aini will be the second presenter, and the third presenter will be Dan Nurfata. So without further ado, I will explain about verbal communication. Verbal communication can be defined as auditory communication with words most of the time. It is a two-way of either one-on-one or written by using language as mean. A good example of improvised verbal communication is with the phone technology. This is where people are allowed to communicate but within a distance. With the matter most, with the oral communication is the way one could put his tone and volume of the spoken word. In the same way, ignition and implication are added advantage as they usually send an anticipated meaning of the message. It is therefore crucial that the right word chosen according to the condition. Since verbal communication are different in symbols and meaning, there are high chance it might be fail in intercultural situations. Majorly, verbal communication can be used to impart knowledge. This is because words are always powerful as compared to gestures and visual. For this reason, it can be used in various ways, such as in relationship by expressing feelings and showing creativity in social situations. And the similarities between verbal and non-verbal communication is numerous forms of non-verbal communication of certain cultures are seen on birthday. This is precisely when humans assign symbolic values of such behavior, which include facial expression, postures, eye contact, and onomatopoeia, among the others. A baby can notice household face and places due to such visual communication. This is because a baby cannot send verbal signals, but instead can log visual communication through her sensory system. Despite the slight difference between verbal and non-verbal communication, there is no much inconsistency in their use. This is mostly because of for effective communication, it can be achieved by combining the both of the two types communication by verbal and non-verbal. By a closer look, it appears that one cannot exist without the other. For instance, reaching a too hot surface and saying it is hot, a non-verbal communication has an extensive role in communication. Such function indicate reinforcement dissertation. Contradictory activity and regulation, according to a research, both these forms of communication are mostly learned, not informed. In summary, the most brilliant similarities between both these ways of communication is that they both deal with transferring and receiving information. In addition to that, none of them, verbal and non-verbal communication, are not connected to the brain. It therefore indicates that both situations, it is perceptual perception that resolve amount of information the brain receives for further thought. Verbal communication, however, requires that notification is will send for there to be communication. For instance, oral communication need both visual and hearing. This is because hearing in this case is accomplished by viewing, hence the brain understand well. The next is the difference between verbal and non-verbal communication is that the verbal communication are thoughts or emotion or information in the exchange between the individual through the use of speech. And non-verbal communication refers to signal transmitted through facial expression, posture, eye contact, gesture, tone of voice, and body language. And communication type between of them is different but similar. It's like formal as well as informal, and non-verbal communication is informal. Impact of the message is very impactful because verbal communication really well understand to the brain and it is documented, and non-verbal communication is very comprehensive as it is show actual emotion of the person. So non-verbal communication can little bit confusing because we doesn't really know what people think. Communicate is verbal communication, communicate with precise information, and non-verbal communication required and times more information. Conveyed through, we can use verbal communication like emails, letters, notes, reports, or anything in written and oral format where we word are used, such as phone technologies these days. In non-verbal communication through body postures, gestures, eye contact, face expression, and any formal expression. Transparency status, verbal communication is clear and concise, and non-verbal communication is complex and sometimes confusing. Next is non-verbal communication and cultures. Non-verbal communication is different from to person and especially from one culture to another. Culture background defines their non-verbal communication as many forms of non-verbal communication like sign and signal are learned behavior as there are a difference in meaning of non-verbal communication. Miscommunication can occur within intercultural people. Communicate people can often others without meaning to do their cultural difference in non-verbal communication. Facial expressions are mostly similar in most cultures, as many of them, like smile and cry, are innate. According to research, six expressions are universal. They are happiness, sadness, disgust, fear, anger, and surprise. But it might also be different, like the extent to which people show their feelings. In some cultures, people express openly. In some people, they do not express openly. Like an instance, you are a European, you are traveling to Japan, and you don't speak Japanese. You don't have translator or dictionary, and you can only use non-verbal communication like want food or where to go, communication to communicate with people. You go to restaurant and order a food by pointing at something like, I want this, and it doesn't want this. And similarly, you pay money and leave. The people bow to you when you are leaving the place as a satisfied customer. There is a difference between eye contact, gestures, touch, appearance, body movement and posture, visual experience, and paralanguage. And this will be explained by my other colleague. So the next presenter time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Afifah Hilwa Aini. I would like to explain about body behavior, eye contact, and gaze. Okay, body behavior or body language is a process of unspoken on non-verbal communication through movement, gesture, and facial expression. Body language exists in both animals and humans. Body language is an important part of communication. Body language used to communicate your feelings and intention and hand gesture. Body language also can use in a positive way to add strength to verbal message. According to a 1981 study by body language expert Albert Mehrabian, word, body language and tone of voice account for 7%, 55%, and 38% of effective communication. In other words, we as human beings pay more than 90% attention to body language and tone of the voice more than the actual word. The study shows you how nonverbal communication is deeply rooted in the brain and tells you about the importance of body language in communication. With only 7% of our attention on verbal communication, it's important to use gesture, facial expression, and other nonverbal cues carefully to communicate. Verbal communication was somewhat helpful, but you were ultimately able to find your hotel because of a combination of spoken word and body language. Body language isn't an exact science, and someone who's feeling bored or busy might not show. Sometimes body language says it all without having to speak a word. An eye roll, for example, tells the other person that we think something is really close or frustrating. There are other times, however, when our body language can accentuate and complement our verbal communication, making us more effective communicators. Most common types of body language to look out for: aggressive, defensive, nervous, bored, and busy. Eye contact. Eye contact is a direct and powerful form of nonverbal communication. The superior in the organization generally maintains eye contact longer than the subordinate. The direct stare of the sender of the message conveys candor and openness. It elicits a feeling of trust. Downward glances are generally associated with modesty, as rolled upward are associated with fatigue. Eye contact serves several communicative functions ranging from regulating interaction to monitoring interaction to conveying information to establishing interpersonal connection. In terms of regulating communication, we use eye contact to signal to others that we are ready to speak, or we use it to sign others to speak. Aside from regulating conversation, eye contact is also used to monitor interaction by taking on feedback and other nonverbal cues and to send information. Our eyes bring in the visual information we need to interpret people's movement, gesture, and eye contact. Eye contact can also used to intimidate others. A speaker can use his or her eye contact to determine if the audience are busy, confused, or bored, and then adapt his or her message accordingly. The specific function of eye contact: regulate interaction and provide turn-taking signals, monitor communication by receiving nonverbal communication from others, signal cognitive activity. We look away when processing information, express engagement. We show people we are listening with our eyes, convey intimidation, express flirtation, establish rapport or connection. I guess. I guess is when a person looks directly into your eyes while having a conversation. It indicates that they are interested and paying attention. However, prolonged eye contact can feel threatening.
Alright, next there is touch. In verbal communication, we must touch the other person. That touch is called nonverbal communication. Touch is the first type of nonverbal communication we experience as humans and is essential to our development and health. Touch that can be interpreted as communication includes handshakes, holding hands, kissing on the checks, lips, and hands, and then back slap, high five, shoulder clapping, arm clapping, and etc. Its profile is a one non-verbal message in communication about a person's touch, intentions, or feelings. Okay, next, in the dominant culture of the United States, there are five basic categories of tactile behavior. Number one, professional touch is done by individuals such as doctors, nurses, and hairdressers for their customers. Number two, the touch of social politeness is usually associated with greeting and showing appreciation. Number three, a friendly touch shows care and concern between family members and close friends too. Number four, the name of intimacy touch is given to the types of touch, caresses, hug, kisses, that usually occur in romantic relationship. Okay, the lastly, number five, sexual touch is touch at the most intimate level, which is used to arouse sexual arousal. Next, now touching touching rules. Touching does mean that there are no rules. Every country has its own rule and is different in its treatment. For example, in Arabic, in Arabs, we are not allowed to greet with the left hand or shake hands because they consider it a social insult. In part of Asia, touch can have a religious meaning. Many Asians believe that the head holds the soul. Therefore, when another person touches their head, it is in danger. That's why it's impolite and outsider should know not to touch the head and upper body of an Asian. Okay. Next, now touch is done in a variety of ways. Michael Argely, means Michael Argely had mentioned that there are several types of touch that are widely used in the Western world. There are several kinds of touch, such as pat, touching the head and back. You can see the slide. There is also a slap, touching the face, hand, and butt. There is punching, touching the face and chest, and then holding by hand, kissing with mouth, cheek, and hand, hugging with shoulder and body, and handshakes. As we know, touch is ordered by hand. Okay, next we are going to smell. Now we are dealing with smell. Non-verbal communication comes in many forms, and smell is one of them. Although less explored, it is very important. This is olfactory non-verbal communication. Smell has been used by humans to communicate consciously and unconsciously while speaking. Most of the communication through smell occurs unconsciously when emotional or in a state of tension. The body will sweat that emits a distinctive odor. But now people have used artificial smells like perfume to convey messages. How could that be? By using perfume, we can convey the message that we are interested in talking to the opposite sex. Fragrances indicate someone want to appear more attractive, as if to say that we want to talk to him uh, or we want to talk to her. Next, there is language. Language is concerned with the communicative characteristic of the voice and with how people use their voice. Language includes such things as giggles, laughter, accents, grunts, sigh, peak, tempo, volume, and resonance, all to do with tone. Yes. And next, most classification divide language into three categories. Number one is vocal qualifiers that are concerned with momentary variations in the manner in which verbal symbols are present, volume, peak, tempo, resonance, and tone. While vocal qualities have many components, cultural differences are most evident in the use of volume. For example, include Arabic speaking loudly because for them it connotes strength and honesty, and soft is cunning. For Brazilian, speaking out loud signifies an interest and engagement. Number two, vocal characterizer is a sound that can stand alone as a symbol because it can be interpreted as having a specific meaning. Example, in laughing, shouting, crying, grunting, moaning, whining, and yawning. And the last is number three. Vocal segregates sound that regulate the flow of verbal conversation, like uh-huh, is, oh, and that also. I think that's all. Thank you very much, and thank you for watching our videos.